As a coach, I'm really conscious of that with my swimmers when I'm advising them on their goals. You know, I know your ambition is here, but this is the reality. And I wasn't thinking in that zone when I ran and jumped into that water and it's sub 60 and the race is starting late and there's all this drama at the start because there's a tropical storm and you know the river is full of pollution and the Coast Guard wants to shut down the swim because we're way polluted and you know, I just wasn't all there. My mind wasn't in the right place, my body wasn't in the right place, and I paid for it. I almost paid for it with my life. And the hardest part about that was I wasn't upset about this swim. I mean, when I got out, I didn't care that they pulled me out of the swim. I didn't care. Like that swim could have been a swim down the coast. It could have been any swim. I was upset because I felt like my foundation had been taken right out from under me, that my security blanket was gone. And that was the hardest part to get my head around. That which has sustained me all this time, through every peak and valley, was gone. And that was the hard part.
So you get pulled out of the water last year. How far into the swim were you?
I don't even know, 2 hours. 2 hours into it.
And as you said earlier today on the radio, I mean, had you stayed in the water, who knows what would have happened?
I was, there are things that I thought that I did during the swim. Like, I fully remember swimming backstroke under the Brooklyn Bridge. Never happened. It was it was me projecting that had happened and remembering a projection, but that never came true. I remember my friend, and really the importance of support crew cannot be, you know, underplayed. My friend Toby diving in, Neil at that stage had said, she's done, get her out, somebody come and get her. And my friend Toby dove in and then got right up to my face, and I remember looking at her and going, oh, it's so nice to see you. Like, anybody who knows me knows I'm in it to win it. I don't play. Like, when I'm in the race, get out of my way, I'm in it to win it. But I really felt like this genuine warm, like, oh, it's so, oh, hi, it's so great, what you doing here? You know, like,
in the water in New York, in a tropical storm.
She fully had the lifeguard rescue swim me into the boat, and I was completely in shock. My heart was in ventricular tachycardia. My body temperature was around 90 degrees. I was totally unresponsive. When they finally got me to the ambulance, that was when, it was the weirdest thing. It's kind of like waking up after this long nap or after the fog. And Neil's sitting there, and I can see Neil's got wet cheeks from half crying. And then the ambulance driver just keeps repeating, you're going to be dead. 2 minutes, you would be gone. If you didn't come out in 2 minutes, you'd be gone. That he was like angrily trying to drive the point home that what are you doing? You know you were going to die. And Neil's looking at me in just utter disbelief. Like, no, this, you know, concern, but just utter disbelief.
Could you, you know, everybody in this room who's ever done any kind of major endurance sports knows that, you know, there comes a time in a race where you may not be able to make it, but you've trained, you've worked, you've got your mindset, I'm going to keep going, and I'll do whatever it takes. Were you conscious at any point last year at all, like, I know I'm not doing well, but I'm not going to stop? Was there any consciousness to that?
See, I think this is my scary gift, in that I stay in the moment. Like, over time, I've just learned, I don't project future when I'm training or racing. I don't project what just happened. I'm just in that second. And all I know in that second is I've got to keep taking another stroke. I'm taking another stroke. I'm taking another breath. I'm taking another stroke. That's it. So sometimes that's great.
So you had no idea how bad it was?
I had no clue. Absolutely no clue. I was swimming myself to death. When he's telling me stories about, we kept trying to stop you and you were getting mad and swimming around us. I do remember early on them asking me questions. I was like, are you kidding me right now? I'm in a race. Why are you asking me to spell my name? Like, and
well, it's a hard name to spell.
It is. My real first name is really difficult to spell. So, yeah, you know.
Which is what, by the way?
Raffaella Victoria. Italian mother.
How long did it take after that to recover? And then to start thinking ahead, like, I didn't accomplish my goal, I'm going to go back and win it next year, which was obviously just last month.
So emotionally, it took a long time. Like, I don't know if I'll ever get over it, to be honest. That was tough. really, really tough. But physically, I got over it pretty quick. Blair and I had this other challenge. We were swimming down the coast, 200 plus miles, raising money for the Navy SEAL Foundation. And it was really great to have something to focus on that wasn't myself for once. You know, I love Blair's motivation for doing swims because he's motivated by causes. And every person gets motivated. He loves swimming for somebody else. He loves doing anything for anybody else. I believe Roger's the same way. Where I just do it because I can. And if it's for somebody else, that's great. And if it's not, that's okay. Just because, you know, watching your parents die of cancer and things, you got this much time. So I do it if I can. But yeah.
So at what point after that swim, Blair, what was the date last year of that swim? I'm just trying to remember.
Mid-August?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was about a year ago.
Yeah.
And then after that, when do you start focusing on, I need to go back? You said you're in it to win it. You know, I'm not only going to go back and swim that, because you've already accomplished a bunch of other stuff already. I mean, you know, the world record holder from Catalina, you know, the what's the name of the swim with the multiple bridges?
Oh, the 8 bridges.
The 8 bridges.
Yeah.
So you've already accomplished a million other things. But as far as focusing in on winning this race,
I didn't. Like, literally the day of the sign up for it. I spent the whole winter paddling with my friends and having fun and just enjoying being back in the water again and finding the love for it and remembering how passionate I really am about it. And, you know, how great it is, you know, when I'm coaching that you can't make kids do anything, but you can inspire them to make good choices and inspire them, you know, to see the good in this and the love in this and why you do it. And then, you know, all of that just re-inspires me. And then, you know, sometime around October is when the race sign-up starts. And with a friend of mine from New York said, hey, listen, they're going to be doing it again and it's going to be totally different than last year. And I was like, yeah, I don't care. It's like, no, it's different. You got to sign up. No, I'm not going to do it.
different why?
This year they split it up into 3 heats. So instead of swimming as one event, they swam it as 3 events. So they had the fastest heat, the second fastest heat, and the third fastest heat, based on the tide and how long people could. Normally they swim it as one, which turns into really a mess because you have people spread apart by hours in the Hudson River, which is just dangerous. So yeah, so this time, oh, it's different. You know, you'll be in a better heat. It'll be warmer. It's a week later. Be great. And I'm like, yeah, really, don't care. And then Neil, my husband, the night before the opening of the swim started 7 a.m. that morning, and at 9 p.m. that night, he's like, I think you should do it. I really do. I just think you should do it. So I was like, all right, I'm doing it. So yeah, that was it.
So fast forward us now. Take us back to last month. We just talked about this just a few minutes ago on the radio. Take us to the starting line and what happens.
It was the greatest. Actually, the whole morning was great. The whole, even from the point where we arrived in New York, everything just, you know, gosh, things just sort of fell into place. It felt like some sort of movie. It was just like Groundhog Day. Like, oh, this should be here. I'm so glad this is here. And everything just sort of fell in place. I was walking from the hotel to the start line, you know, listening to Higher Grounds. I'm jamming out to the start line, got my number. You know, there's always fun stuff going on at the start. And then when they called all the swimmers up to the bulkhead where we jumped off from, it said swimmer 1 in the water. And I ran from the back of the bulkhead, did a huge cannonball into the water, and I just got enveloped into my security blanket again. It was exactly where I wanted to be, exactly the feeling I knew it would feel like, and I was just getting into an old friend. It was just amazing.
But the water temperature.
62.
Right. And so for you, I mean, swimming here, no big deal, right?
Nah.
How about for everybody else?
Yeah. Yeah, it was great because as soon as I got in, I was like, this is awesome. If this is as cold as it gets, this is great. And I lifted my head up and I turned back and the rest of the field is sitting there shivering. And I was like, you guys are so screwed.
Is there anybody in the field, male or female, because if you don't know this part of the story, Gracie not only won, she beat everybody. And the closest person to her was a guy who was about 4 minutes behind her. So she didn't just win the female division, she won the whole thing. Was there anybody that you were looking at or that you knew from reputation that I've got to beat him or I've got to watch out for her? Was there anything like that?
There were two swimmers that we get ranked before the event starts. And these two swimmers, I said, since I signed up, I was like, these two guys are going to be the ones to watch. This girl is a dark horse, and this guy is a paid professional. He's a paid professional swimmer from Brazil. We really don't have those in America, but they have them in South America and in Europe. So this guy is really something. And it's like, yeah, these are the two people I need to beat. So sure enough, that day, they get ranked number 8 and like number 5 or 6. The one guy was really unhappy about his ranking.
Were you ranked 1? Because
I was ranked 1. And you want to talk about a target on your back in a really uncomfortable silence with everybody stretching and then you're by yourself.
Did anybody know that last year they had to pull you out of the water?
A couple of them
I mean,
did.
were people thinking, why is she number 1?
A couple of them did. And then...
Why were you number 1?
I don't know, to
Was
be
it-
honest
was
with
it
you.
the Catalina
The guy
swim?
probably should have been number 1 because he's the paid professional. But the race director knew who I was, and he knows what I did down the Hudson before, so I think he was just betting on me, taking a chance. I don't know.
Can you bet on this in Vegas?
Maybe.
Okay, so the target's on your back, but you're looking out for these two.
Yeah, I knew those two were going to be a factor, you know. And this race, unlike a lot of marathon swims, you know, in Catalina, your support crew is important, but you don't have a better or worse time because you've got a great support crew. But in this swim, your support crew is critical because it's all about the currents, it's all about the tide, it's all about boat positioning and knowing where you need to be and sending the boat ahead and behind to test all of these things. And I assembled an A team. And without them, my husband and Sean and Toby, I couldn't have done it. They were on their game, and no matter what this one character tried to do down the river to gain an advantage, we stayed in front.
What are you trying to do?
Skipped 3 buoys, which was awesome. I went from like a 600-meter lead to a 500-meter lead. And if any endurance sport knows that once you see somebody, it's game on. And so the minute he saw me, we entered into the East River, and because of those skips, he was close. And then he made this mad dash in the East River, which is funny because I'm like, buddy, we have 3 hours in this river. You know, like you just played your hand. And that was the best part because, you know, it's like swimming in a pool and somebody races the first lap and it's a long race and you're like, you're done. I was thinking that, like, do you know we're in here for 3 hours? And then guess what? We're 3 hours in the next river system. We're not even a quarter. So this guy just sprints, and I could hear while I'm swimming the kayaker behind him yelling at my kayaker, my husband, saying, get her out of the way, move her over. And my husband's like, are you out of your mind? She's leading. We have the right of way. So this guy actually takes me on the inside, which is illegal, pushes me into the main current, which is coming at us at 3 knots, which is fast. And I'm in the main head current, and then he takes me on the inside. So whatever. So let him go. My whole crew, you know, the whole swim I'm breathing and I can see them and they've all got smiles and they're like, yeah, and then this happens and then the serious faces come.
Okay.
And I'm kind of irritated because I'm like, just fake it. Just fake a smile. I know he passed me. You don't have to act like that.
How long was he ahead of you for?
Not even 30 minutes. Not even 30 minutes.
Was he burnt out, or were you just...
I think we played a little game with him. One, I mean, I think he burned himself out. Like, there was no way he was going to maintain that tempo or that speed for any of the time. So I made constant ground on him. And then my boat, this is where the crew is important. My boat crew positioned themselves on his inside. So it was on the inside of him. So as I passed him, my boat hid me. So I swam right past him and then stayed there in between, like where they were looking, and then they looked behind and were cheering at me from behind. So he thought the whole time he was leading, when really I was gone. Like, so, and he only figured it out way later, which was awesome, or his crew did. And then my crew was laughing, and then they sped up and caught back up to me once they saw that they had figured it out.
And by the way, are we talking about the Brazilian pro?
Yeah.
Is that who it is?
Yeah.
I'd be curious, before we open it up, just the last maybe 30 or 40 minutes, because I'm sure many of you were as well, I was following online. Like I was watching, everything had like a link on Facebook, and I wanted to just watch it. And I just remember, and check me on this if you guys remember it the same way, but like you were in the lead, but then maybe like you were slowing down. I mean, that's the way I recall it. The last 30, 40 minutes or so, I mean, what is it like as you...
So there's usually, if we left at the right time, we would have been, and even if we would have left a little later, we would have had current the minute we hit the Hudson. But instead, we started early, and we had swam way faster than they had predicted. So we hit the Hudson with nothing. Like there was nothing. As a matter of fact, it was like .08, I think, against us when we hit it. So, and that part of the swim is almost half the swim. So half the swim on the finish, there was just no current. So, yeah, that was a little bit of a bummer because I was expecting this great ride down the Hudson, which just didn't quite play out. But only when we passed the George Washington Bridge and got basically close to Harlem into Riverbank, which is nearing the finish, did it start flowing. But by then it had floated late. But I kind of knew it. When I knew we started early, I knew that the conditions weren't going to be in our favor. So in my mind, I had this idea. I was like, and I should have probably shared it with my crew, but I didn't. I was like, I'm going to go as fast as I can to this one place on the George Washington Bridge, and I'm going to pass it, I'm going to get to Riverbank, and I'm going to sprint. Because hopefully by then, we'll almost be done, and there will be current. And if I've got a lead when we're in current, no matter how fast I am, there's no way he'll make that up. And sure enough, that was the case. So they saw me just sort of, like, I was in so much pain, my shoulders were hurting from the chop. I couldn't breathe between the boat fumes and swallowing water. Like, I just wanted to be done. And they were screaming about a record and stuff, and they were like, you got 30 minutes. I'm like, no, I don't. The finish is down there. I don't know what you're talking about. So, yeah, there was some confusion about where the finish was and where I actually was on the river. But, yeah, no, it turned out good. He couldn't make the ground up on me at the end.
7 hours and 14 minutes? Mm-hmm. And was that like the all-time record?
No, it's in the, I think, the top 15 fastest race times ever. The record happens on a separate day than the race.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I guess that's something you have to shoot for.
If I get the invitation to come back, I'll do it.
Yeah, I would think that they would invite the defending champion.
I hope so.
Yeah. One final thought here. You mentioned that each river had a different taste.
Yeah. Yeah.
You sure you know which river tasted like what?
Absolutely. Like the Hudson was fairly clean. It just sort of tasted like brackish bay water. So I was like, oh, Hudson. And then we get into the East River, and that was really funky. Like, it smelled really diesel-y, and the Staten Island Ferry goes through there, and you could totally taste it, like diesel. And then as soon as we got into the Harlem, it was like chemical water. It was disgusting. I was like, oh, Harlem. And then we're back into the Hudson and back into the nice bay water again. It's great.
Amazing. What was it like at the finish? When you crossed the finish line and you knew you had won, what was that like for you?
Cathartic. It was really cathartic. It was like there was this nice little chapter. I never felt really, I mean, I guess like I had something to prove. I felt like maybe I had something to prove to my swimming community, but not necessarily to myself, but it was just cathartic. It was like I had business that was left unattended, and now that business is done. Now I can close the chapter on that business. And then all I wanted to do when I finished was hold Neil, because he had been in that kayak with me through all that drama in the water and through all of that. So as soon as I finished and I saw that they had recorded my time and everything was done, I jumped on his kayak and just held on to him. Like, just because, you know, you're just so full of gratitude for the people they had gotten you there. I knew that I didn't finish that swim by myself, not even a little bit. That I finished it because I had the greatest crew ever and the greatest support team ever bringing me through this. So yeah.
It's quite a team sport. Wow, that was really an awesome story, Grace. Blair, jump in.
So I'm curious, you know, as you mentioned, it's not really much of a solo endeavor, it takes a team, right? And I'm curious on, you know, I know from swimming with you in the past, with Neil, that he loves being in his kayak, and you can't, you know, compare all kayakers the same. It takes a certain skill and a certain dynamic. What was that like? You know, how far away is he during the race from you?
Neil's within an arm's length at all times. Some kayakers will be further away if there's a lot of chop or if it's pushing it against me. I'll swim further out, but I'm always within an arm's length, and I'm always where I can look in his eye. And that's the only time that I get really, really grumpy with him, is if he moves at all where I can't see his face. I just want to have eye contact at all times. So generally, he makes sure that happens. Happy wife, kind of.
Okay, so the other question on that is 7.5 hour effort, and you're at capacity at some full threshold, but you're not doing that alone either. There's some sort of a fueling strategy you're using along the way. Can you elaborate on that?
I can. I actually used more variants in fuel than I ever have. Like, use CarboPro only. It's my one thing, and I C5 all the way through. But this time I started to cramp because conditions were weird, and I've never cramped before because I didn't take the Metasol before. So this time, and somebody had warned me before. They said the minerals in the river are different than what you're used to, and it may, pull things out of your system that that you're not used to. And sure enough, I was so salt depleted, which I'm never salt depleted, obviously, swimming here, never, because I'm always in the ocean. You're always absorbing some sort of mineral. Where out there's no mineral content in the water. The water's stripped of it. So I was so mineral deficient. So they were every hour, sometimes every 30 minutes, opening Metasalt and putting it in my feeds. And without it, I wouldn't have made it through.
How does a feed work? What does that mean for those that haven't done?
Okay, a feed is my nutrition. That's the swimmer term for nutrition. So I take around 150 to 175 calories per half hour. So around 300 to 350, 400 calories per hour. I'm pretty rigid about it, as I found if you go up and down too much, it can cause some GI issues. But I'm generally okay. Towards the end of the swim, they start bumping it. And towards the end of the swim, when I'm really, really depleted and my brain's just not functioning correctly because I'm burning through more stores than I'm actually taking in, then they start bumping it. Then there's sometimes 500 calories an hour happening there. And my body can take that. Through trial and error, we figured out that I can manage that calorie content. But yeah, the Metasalt, everything, like the motivators on the dot every 3 hours, and I'm grumpy when they forget them. That's also like another time I'm like, hey, it's time. It's supposed to be on this feed. Where is it? So yeah, no, that's good. The VO2 max with the motivators, religious about those as well. But this time the winner of the day was the Metasol, which I've never had. I always use them, but I've never needed them quite as much as I did this time. Oh, and Tylenol at like $5 a
That's not a CarboPro bottle.
It's not. But
I wish.
I've never been in a swim, even in Catalina. I didn't take any. I just did it. I didn't. And the 8 bridges, I didn't take any Advil or anything the whole time. But this time, I was in so much pain from the chop. It was just head on the whole time that my shoulders just couldn't manage it. So I screamed for some Tylenol. And luckily, the boat captain did me a solid on that. So it was good.
So logistically, how does that feed? Does Neil, your kayaker, provide that feed, or does it come from the boat?
Neil, my kayaker, generally provides the feed. The guys on the boat mix the feeds. Along with crew, they all have a degree in mixology, and I usually give them a form that says, this is what I want from this hour to this hour to this hour, and then if this, then this, if this, then this, if this, then this, if this, then this. And then both of them have trained with me and been with me on other swims, so they've seen me at various levels of good and bad. Both of them were with me when they had to pull me out, so they've seen me at my worst, and one of them was with me when I broke the Catalina record, so she's seen me at my best. So yeah, they were key people. So they mix a set of bottles, and then they hand them off to Neil in the kayak. So I've got this little Rubbermaid bottle with a rope. And then as every 30 minutes, Neil starts counting down. 5, 4, 3, 2. The 2 is the worst. Because I'm fine on time, and then when he says 2 minutes, it seems like that 2 minutes lasts forever. But, because then I'm like, oh, I guess I am hungry. This is going to be great. And then right about the time, he holds the bottle up. And then I take one last freestyle stroke, and I roll on my back, grab it, click it open, drink, drop, and go. So I try to take all of it within 4 to 6 seconds tops.
And you're still moving. You're still.
Yeah, state college.
Gotcha. I understand. I don't know about you guys, but I remember also seeing on Facebook later that night, you in like a robe in a hotel room,
Yeah.
like chomping down
Yeah.
on whatever the post-race.
It was my birthday, so I didn't want to do it. So my friends had got me this huge Oreo cookie birthday cake. So that was the post-race meal. Was I ate half the cake. It was really good. I was pretty sick later too. Not from the river, just from the cake. Yeah.
Any other? Yeah, jump right in.
Probably most of us are following it through Facebook. Tell us about, maybe this is Neil, but all of a sudden I see we're following it, and it's like, her team is called for a 30-minute sprint. And I was like kind of mad. I was like, what? After all this, and now she's doing a 30-minute sprint? So I don't know, maybe talk about
So there's a
that.
7-hour threshold that if you can break that barrier, 7 hours for the swim, that's kind of a very good time or a record time. And they estimated her to be approximately 30 minutes out. So they figured if she would sprint for 30 minutes, she would easily break that time. And unfortunately, their estimate was off.
That was the part where I said, they kept saying I'm 30 minutes. I was like, but I'm not. Like, I know this building. I'm not 30 minutes.
So was that your, was that the plan, that you were going to sprint for the last?
No, I kind of was listening to him. I actually, at that stage, I actually yelled, leave me alone. I'm fine. And I just kept finishing. But, I mean, I didn't, they were really, my Boda, I think, was hoping for the record, but I didn't, I even remember saying, I don't care about the record. Like, I just wanted to finish. I mean, that race isn't about the record, it's about the win. It's like athletes that do Kona, you know, they're in it for the win. I mean, if they get a record or if they get a, you know, if they have the fastest swim of the day, or if they have the whatever, but they're in it for the win. They may never get a chance to win again, so they're in it for the win. This swim is like that. This swim most people only do once. A couple people have done it more than once. But you get one chance usually for the win, and that's all I wanted. I didn't care about the record. But yeah, they were hoping that would be a little icing on the cake. That was the 30-minute sprint.
So when you and Neil go into this, you guys have plan A and plan B, and is he like the definitive answer? Like he'll have a chalkboard and say, this is what you need to do? Or, I mean, there can't be any arguing going on out there. I mean, you just have to focus and swim. So, but when you do race, does Neil have a plan A and a plan B for you? Or you desperately have to do that plan C sometimes?
I'm pretty OCD, so I'm the one generally with plan A, B, C, D, and if, and that. But the end answer on everything is Neil. Like, once I really get going, I let go of control to my kayaker. It's really futile when you're racing to try to fight the person who's giving you direction.
Do you guys
even if you
communicate
disagree.
verbally, or does he have a chalkboard?
Mm-mm. I just follow him.
I have 4 seconds to get the message across when she feeds. So I try to say as much as possible.
That's the only time you can really get a message when she's feeding?
Yeah.
We do have signals as well that we use, mostly for direction. But when I have good eye contact with her and I can see her lips and any kind of signals that she sends me with her body, then we can adjust. And I talk to her crew, for instance, I gave her hot feeds in the East River when we realized it was colder water, because I checked water temperature every few minutes, check her stroke rate. And then you realize dropping stroke rate, lower temperature, get hotter feeds, help her fight through that. So the crew is really a supporting role for her.
Right.
Any interesting post-championship calls, texts, tweets? Because for those of you that maybe don't know, what was it, about a year or so ago, Lance Armstrong was in town and doing some training, and Gracie was putting a beat down on him up at the pool at the YMCA in Encinitas, and I sent him a tweet and said, how'd you like the workout that my girl Gracie put you through? And he said, well, I got to know the back of her feet pretty well. So anybody call though and kind of check in afterwards?
One I thought was really cool was Shelley Taylor-Schneid. Like, if you've ever watched, she's one of the greatest marathon swimmers of all time. She's in the Hall of Fame. She's from Australia. She's pretty famous, and she sent me a personal email and was like, wow, what a great. And then just the swimming community, I mean, I couldn't hardly keep, there was like 200 and 300 messages a day on my Facebook, and my Facebook got overloaded. I couldn't actually even reply anymore to stuff, and that was kind of cool, because Generally, I'm, you know, not really that person, but that was really cool, and just the whole community was reaching out, and that was really fun. And then people I hadn't heard from in years who've done stuff were like, oh my God, I just saw that you did this. And people from Florida were sending me stuff that was in their newspaper about me winning, and Washington and Wyoming, just random. Guess what's in the Houston Chronicle? You winning Manhattan.
Wow.
So that was really cool.
I had a quick question. This is more for Neil. First of all, a comment. You know, the fact that you can train and race together and support each other in the same way that you do, and you can, it's a real testament to the strength of your marriage. I know that the people that spend that much time together, both, you know, personally and with their things they're passionate about, you know, it can get probably pretty tense sometimes. So that's why I asked. She said, she intimated a couple of times that she got grumpy, or she would say shut up or something. How do you, as the lead support, it's not easy being in a kayak that, you know, for 6 or 7 hours either, right? You got to be tired, you're probably getting cranky and hungry and frustrated and watching it. So how do you deal with, you know, the friction that comes every now and then without like letting it get in the way of the race?
Actually, there are a lot of outside factors as well that contribute. For instance, she mentioned earlier the buoys, where the guy behind her was missing buoys, and that really got me worked up.
Right?
'Cause immediately I'm thinking, this guy should be disqualified, and he's getting unfair advantage. I wanted to give her the best line possible, the most fair race possible, no, you know, cloud over it or anything, nobody can second guess it. And that tension, she immediately senses that tension on me. Just facial expression, knowing me 14 years, she knows exactly when things go wrong or when I yell at people. And that affects her swim. So I'm almost like, my number one role is essentially a cheerleader, regardless of what's going on around me. Because that affects her mood and her stroke. Second of all, when she gets agitated or hurt or something, I can see on her facial expression or her body or her arms or any kind of hurt. And unfortunately, it does have an impact. For instance, when she gets agitated, she'll sometimes yell or kick the boat out of the way, or
I do that.
We've had races where we have to yell at Coast Guard for help and have the standard signal with a paddle in the air, and they wave back at us.
That's happened too.
Sometimes out in the water, people just don't get it. And you have to have a very strong, solid foundation for that. So it takes hours out in the ocean practicing and understanding our signals. So at the end, for instance, there was an unexpected buoy, which she had to swim around. Trying to explain that to her in a 5-knot current going downstream and making a sharp left turn without knowing the signal would have been tough. But at least we had that experience, that foundation. So I could just touch my left shoulder, and she knew immediately she had to take a buoy on her left shoulder.
Wow.
So over time, you get these signals that you build up, and you function better as a team.
It's interesting hearing what a team sport is. I mean, you know, most people would think you just jump in the water and you go, but it is a lot of team stuff. I'm hoping that when you cross the English Channel, that we'll have a whole room filled with people that will really understand and appreciate how awesome that is. I asked Grace earlier, I said, well, the English Channel, you know, would be the next thing, why not? And she said, this is what she said to me today on the radio, she said, well, it's kind of expensive. And I said, all you got to do is put the word out that the champion from New York wants to go do this, and the whole endurance sports community, particularly here in San Diego, would support you in a heartbeat. I mean, don't you want to do that?
I do. I guess I'm just embarrassed about it. But first, I'm paddling the
Yes.
channel, so that's my first. Before England, I'm paddling the Catalina Classic, so I got to get over that hurdle first, and then the English Channel.
Yeah, that's the first time for everybody.
You're also doing something else after that, to swim from.
Yes, right after the Catalina Classic, I'm swimming from the U.S. to Canada,
Where in the U.S.?
like a week later.
From San Diego to Vancouver.
Vermont to Quebec.
right.
Yeah, no,
San
no.
Diego, the U.S.?
Could be from anywhere. No,
I'm kidding.
I'm leaving from Vermont to Quebec in Lake Memphremagog.
How long is that?
Ooh, like 24, 26 miles, something in that variety. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's all these great, cool paddles that or swims that you've done, including the Catalina one. And I know that's always a solo endeavor. Are there any major races here on the West Coast that have happened or should happen in your opinion? Because it's a small sport. It's even smaller than our paddleboarding sport, but it's very interesting. I mean, do you see something like that happening on the West Coast where we could have a big event like that?
I wish we
Catalina seems
could.
the most obvious to me, but there could be.
It actually started off, so the Catalina Channel actually started off as a race. The Wrigley's own Catalina, and that's, you know, Mr. Wrigley is the one who offered a big cash prize, and it was a race from Catalina to Long Beach. That's how it kind of,
$25,000 back in what, 1920?
1920s.
That was big money back then.
Yeah,
Back then.
back then, yeah. And so that the Wrigley's no longer want any involvement in it anymore. We've asked. And so there's some talk that they may bring the race back in for the 50-year anniversary or 60-year anniversary of it. But I mean, there's still talk. Logistically, it's really, really hard to manage people's the abilities and the ranges that end up happening. And most of us will tell you there's like kind of a 4 to 5 hour sort of witching hour mark. And even the best swimmers you'll see out there have a hard time at that stage. And then it's hard to manage safety-wise those people at that time. Because it's way more dangerous. I mean, you think about, just like Roger was talking about earlier, drowning. I mean, we lost the lifeguard in Newport. Steve Robles got bit by a shark. You know, this is like, every time you step into the ocean and you're not on a board, you're not on anything that can rescue you, you're in grave danger. I almost die. I mean, people die all the time, you know, and so, yeah, as much as I would love for something like that to happen, I think the risk at this stage outweighs. I think we lose, from what I read earlier, I think it's like 4 marathon swimmers a year to accidents out in different channels. I mean, that's huge, actually, when you think about like such a small community of people. I mean, we definitely don't lose 4 paddlers a year, you know? And that's to hypothermia, that's to poor nutrition, which is a huge issue, actually. For people's blood, actually, they'll kind of poison themselves with bad nutrition or not enough. And you know, just various heat stroke, and people that
Not
heart
eating.
attacks. Yeah, just all sorts of issues added.
Things that you would never expect.
Yeah. So yeah, but they do have a lot of races on the West Coast. All the ones, there's tons. There's the Beta Breakers in San Francisco, which is pretty epic, and then there's the bridge to bridge there, where you're going from the Bay Bridge to the Golden Gate, which is pretty epic. But marathon link swims, there's really not a whole lot. But I'd like to see some. That'd be cool.
Amazing. Congratulations. I mean, and I'm just so glad, like I said, that, you know, the local media has finally caught on. Just as far as in the last maybe 2 weeks, I feel like you've gotten a lot of, you know, coverage. And I think a lot of that, you know, is putting it out on Facebook and having people kind of organically spreading the word. It's not, there's no PR team necessarily, right? There's no publicist employed by the team. So yeah, it's been great that people have just put it out there, and all of a sudden, you know, you're showing up on the local news, and people are going, yeah, I heard about her,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, even though you say you're a little embarrassed about it all.
Pretty embarrassed.
I don't think you should be anymore. I think that I think people here would like to support you, and we got, you know, world champion here. You know, so thank you all so much for coming tonight. Praise Vanderbilt, everybody.